Final Fantasy XVI is right around the corner, and the buzz around the game has been at an all-time high. Honestly, it doesn't even feel real that we're less than a week away from finally getting this game. I don't know about you, but for me it felt like an eternity just waiting to get my hands on it. The demo released to widespread praise and has convinced many who doubted the game to buy a PlayStation 5, which is wild! Finally, the PlayStation 5 has its console seller. The demo feedback was massive, as according to Yoshi P, it has been downloaded and enjoyed by millions this week. Like, think about that. This was so impactful, this 2-hour demo, and people are even saying that this demo could be considered for quote-unquote Game of the Year alone. It's just wild. With how infectious this demo has become, Creative Business Unit 3 has received a massive amount of feedback, so much so that it was included in the special livestream for the game. The livestream was hosted on Square Enix's YouTube channel and featured many of the key team members for this game, which included Yoshi P, Soken, Koji Fox, and others. The livestream started covering much of the information that developers have already shared with us over the last 3 years. The game will feature a new Game Plus mode that will also double as a hard mode. This mode will unlock following completion of the game, and it is called Final Fantasy Mode. In this mode, the level cap will be raised to 100, enemies will be a lot more difficult to face, and the ultimate weapon will be craftable. Not only that, but the placement and variety of enemies and bosses will be changed to keep things interesting. In an IGN video that covered this same feature the day before the livestream, one of the examples they used was a Wyvern mini-boss being swapped out for a Chimera. I love the idea of this, because not only will New Game Plus be challenging, but it will also keep the replay value fresh and new. There were some concerns players had that were prefaced before the demo's launch, but were once again addressed. Yoshi P reiterated why the demo contained so many cutscenes, stating that the demo covers the prologue of the game, and that it will start to feel more like the Icon Challenge as the game progresses past that point. Well, yeah, it's the prologue. Like, what were you expecting? Wild to think that a prologue would have cutscenes. Anyway, despite the long cutscenes, Yoshi P reiterated that the team believes they are telling a compelling story, and that the cutscenes will grip the player the further they play. Based on their past work with Final Fantasy XIV and that prologue alone, I am absolutely convinced. The second bit of feedback were from players who played with Japanese dubbing on, as many of them noted that the lip sync looked off. Yoshi P said that the team argued back and forth on whether or not they would take the extra time to sync everything up, but ultimately, it would have been too much work. Most of the lip movements were based on facial capture data from the English cast, and when they tried to use AI for the lip movements, it didn't produce the right results. To alleviate this, the team recommends that players play the game with English dubbing on, as that was the original intent for the game. Finally, the team addressed the issues that players were facing with the game's performance. Both players and the team were finding that frame rates were dropping when in detailed areas or when many non-playable characters were around. They want everyone to be rest assured as they will be working on future patch updates to improve performance in these key areas. So it looks like we will be getting patches in the future to address performance mode. Like I've said before, this doesn't bother me too much already, but I am glad that for players who really hold on to that 60 frames per second that they will be listened to and they will get that patch. Luckily, the game's performance mode still stays above 30 frames and maintains 60 when in combat, so the game is still very much playable. The demo looks infinitely better when playing in person than it does on a live stream, so Yoshi P recommends everyone give it a try if they haven't already. When it comes to motion blur issues, CBU3 is looking into adding an option to adjust motion blur or even to turn it off completely for those who have a hard time with it. Additionally, there will also be options for camera speed and more availability for control binding. Yoshi P also went over different features of the game that they considered but ultimately decided against. One of these cut features was including a mini-map. The reasoning behind not including one was because they found that players tend to spend more time navigating by looking at their mini-map than by looking at the world around them. I've personally been guilty of this in Final Fantasy XIV, so I'm glad they're taking this into account. For those who do like their maps, maps are not going to be completely gone, but they won't be a persistent element in the HUD. The team says that the rest of the game will feature vast explorable areas, and that you can always view a map of the area by pressing the touchpad. I can't wait to see what landmarks and visual points of interest the team has sprinkled in these zones. Afterward, the team went over features of the game that each key member recommends players give a try when the game releases. Personally, I am very excited to create beautiful pictures via the photo mode. Koji Fox took a deep dive into the localization process. In fact, he did some of the facial capture and voice acting, but it was ultimately cut from the game. A fun fact that was revealed was that initially the game was planned to be on 2 discs, but about 6 months before, they managed to fit the game on 1 disc instead. Had the game been on 2 discs instead of 1, that production cost would have ballooned, and the game would have had a delayed date. Some players were experiencing a rare bug where the demo would crash their PS5, and the team is working hard to discover what is causing this issue. As a result, there will in fact now be a pre-release patch. While the team wanted to make sure the game wouldn't need such a patch, the immense amount of feedback has allowed them to find errors that they weren't able to find initially. The patch will optimize some performance, fix rare crashes, and fix some minor text issues. The team stated that this will be a 300 megabyte pre-release patch that will be rolled out on June 20th. The patch is not needed to run the game, so if you don't have accessible internet during that time, your game will still work. Patch or no patch, the game will still work on June 22nd when it releases from the box. Overall, this was a very informative live stream summarizing everything we have seen up to this point. With the game releasing on the 22nd, we luckily won't have to wait much longer. Until then, what do you plan on playing to hold you over? Let me know in the comments below. Final Fantasy XVI is shaping to be a quality game that we don't often see in the industry, and I can't wait to share my full thoughts with you after the game is released. Until then, take care to avoid spoilers in the meantime. If you like what I'm doing here and want to stick around, be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. I've got a lot of things I'm planning on covering, and I can't wait to share them with you. Take care.